Out. Good afternoon, everyone. How are you all doing?
Yeah.
Fantastic. So I'm just getting my notes. And I need my glasses. So I can't see that. Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to be talking about mental health today. Again, just a slight introduction for those of you who didn't meet me yesterday. I live in Leeds. I'm part of the Leeds Church. I became a Christian in 1995 in Leeds. Went to Manchester in 1996, did my studies there, and then 3 years later I came back to Leeds on the mission team in 1999. And I've been in Leeds since then. I've got my son here, Leigh, at the top. He came over last night to come and join me just to hang out for the weekend. Thank you so much. Thank you. Getting into the mental health world, for me, it was an intentional move. Mainly because there were two things that made me actually get into the subject. The first thing was I used to chair a Nigerian charity, the Nigerian community in Leeds. It was a charity with several hundred people. And for you Africans in the room, you might be able to relate to this, or other nations. Within the African community, if somebody's got a mental health issue, there's only two solutions. One is you pray the evil spirit out of them, or two, you lock them up and you throw the key away. We never talk about them. And for me, chairing that charity, I recognized there were issues in the community I needed to understand. The other reason was I used to be a scout leader. I used to be an Akela, a group scout leader in a deprived area of Leeds. And again, I used to see issues in the community I just did not understand. And I wanted to understand it more. And this came up at my workplace to become a mental health first aider in the workplace to be able to help people. So when to do that, and it's amazing how even within the workplace, as a physical first aider, do we have any physical first aiders here? Okay, a couple, all right, fantastic. A few, yeah. So as a physical first aider, you'd get a call. It was a big building, 8 floors. There'll be a call on the tannoy once every 6 weeks. First aider needed on the 8th floor, and all of us with first aid boxes will run up there. The first person there gets the job, and it used to be a paper cut or something ridiculous like that. And so, I know. And so became a mental health first aider, and it was amazing how almost every week, almost every other week, somebody would message me, Sam, can we have a chat? Sam, can we meet in the garden? Can we have a quick chat? And I realized there was a bigger issue within the workplace. And we only had 1 or 2 trainers at Department of Health at the time. So I had to write a business case, apply to be able to become a trainer. And so became a trainer to be able to train people within the department. And so used to travel around the country training people within the civil service. But then I left my job in 2016. I turned 45. And I thought if I don't jump now, I'm never going to jump. So I just took the plunge, started the business doing this and my finance. And it's been great because I've been able to advertise to different companies. I've got lots of companies that they call me, I go in, and I train their staff to become mental health first aiders. I love this subject, it's important. And just to go through why it's important, if you think about the impact of mental health issues right now, 1 in 4, so look around, 1 in 4 of us will experience a mental health issue every year. That was pre-COVID. Since COVID, it's probably gone down to 1 in 3. It's a big issue that we do not talk about. It's a taboo subject. 1 in 6, back in the day, I don't know how many of you are old enough, but if somebody is not well and they don't come in, they've got a bad back. How many of you remember that? Yeah? But these days, it's actually stress, depression, or anxiety. Those are the main reasons why people are off work. Presenteeism. Again, presenteeism is people being at work, but they might as well not be there. Yeah. Part of my role at DH, I used to be working HR. And it's amazing how within the civil service, you can get 6 months off sick, full pay. And it's amazing how many people would call. I can see some people laughing. They probably know where I'm going with this. 2 days before they're supposed to come back, they will call and say, when is my 6 months up? And if you say it's up tomorrow, I can guarantee you they'll be back in tomorrow. They're not due to be back because they're not well enough yet, but they come in because they've just got to come in. They need to pay their mortgage. Yeah? So those stats there, that is the reason why we need to talk about this more. Very, very important. And when you look in the scriptures, let me just encourage you, if you turn to, because we are a church, Ruth 1, 20 to 21, if you're taking notes, Naomi, she was unhappy. She was bitter. The Lord has afflicted me. The Almighty has brought misfortune on me. How do you think her mental health was at that point? Probably wasn't great. David, forget David. David had an issue almost every chapter. He was just, forget David, man. I'm not even going to go there. But Psalm 13, 1 to 2, Psalm 38, 4 to 6. Those are just a couple of David's battle with his mental health. My favorite, though, is Elijah. I don't know how many of you know the story, but Elijah had just mashed up Jezebel's prophets of Baal, called water, called fire down, did everything. And then the very next chapter, he was like, God, just take me, I want to die. Yeah? Elijah was suicidal. 1 Kings 19, 3 to 4. Yeah? He's like, Lord, I want to die. Just take my life. That's amazing, isn't it? Yeah? Jonah, again, he wanted to give up. Just think of the way he would have been feeling, what he was going through. Tough times. So, Jonah 4, 1 to 3. Forget Job. Imagine what Job went through. Just think about Job and the challenges he must have gone through. Yeah? Again, Job 3:11. Why did I not perish at birth and die as I came from the womb? Is that depression or what? Is that suicidal or what? Yeah? Job 3:26. Job 10:1. I loathe my very life. That's amazing. Yeah? Jeremiah. Again, Jeremiah 20, 14 to 18. Martha, anxious, worried about what's going on, stressed out about different things. And those are just some of the people who had mental health challenges within the Bible. And again, the way, for me personally, as Christians in the past, I don't think we've dealt with this properly. I think sometimes we do look down on people. We say things like pray more. Yeah? That's just my experience within churches. Okay? And I just think this is something we do need to deal with more. And I'm glad you guys, well done to Mulligan and and Joe for putting this together, because a lot of churches need this more than ever. So, I've got a quiz for you, just to test your mental health knowledge. True or false? If you think it's true, I'd like you to stand up, just to get some movement, because it's cold in here. If you think it's false, stay seated. So the first question, mental ill health is responsible for 9 million working days lost and cost 10 billion each year. If you think it's true, please rise. I like what Mulligan said there. He thinks it's more. Please take your seats. Thank you. 91 million working days lost. Yeah? I was saying one of my clients is Lloyd's Bank. And I remember running a session for Lloyd's Bank, just their PPI department a few years ago. Mental health was costing them £3 million a year. Just that one bank. Think about all the other organizations. It's amazing. Second question. Total cost of mental ill health in England is estimated at £105 billion. If you think it's true, please stand up. You're not sure now, are you? It's true. It's true.
It's true in 2016.
Yes, it takes a while for the numbers to catch up. It's a law. Now imagine if we could slash that in half, where that money could go to. Okay? Number 3, 35% of mental illness starts before the age of 18. True or false? If you think it's true, please stand up. Woo-hoo, this is a bit tighter. But look at the numbers. 75% starts before the age of 18. Now, one of the things we talk about is early intervention. Yeah? And as an African, I can say this. As a black man, I can say this. One of the challenges we have in the black community is that because of the stigma and our attitude to mental health issues, it takes a lot longer for us to go and get help. So when you look in a lot of asylums and places like that, you actually get a higher proportion of people who are black in those places. Now there's other reasons, there's other things that could contribute to that. But one of the reasons is when we start seeing symptoms, we don't really deal with it. We're embarrassed, we don't go and get help for it. And so the older you get, the more challenging it gets, the more difficult it gets, and it becomes more serious. So really important to be able to catch it early and be able to help somebody a lot earlier. Okay? Now, number 4. Suicide is the most common cause of death for men aged 40 to 49. In England, true or false? Oh, okay. That seems a bit more, yeah, it's true. Now, it used to be 25 to 49. But over the last few years, it's actually shrunk 40 to 49. Mainly because of life, finances, the economy, you know, then we'll look at suicide a bit later, okay? And then finally, 40% of people with diagnosable mental illness receive no treatment at all. Now think about that question before you answer. 40% with diagnosable mental illness receive no treatment. If you think it's true, please stand up. If you think it's more, please stand up. Yeah? Yeah. Thank you. 75% do not receive any help. Why do you think that is? Wait, just give me 1 second. Lack of I like that one. I've spent 24 hours with him and I want to take him with me. Sorry, go for it.
I think we're aware of it in the family, but there's an element of shame or for it to come out. So it sometimes stays within the family.
Yeah?
Until it gets out of hand.
That's right. Yeah? Yeah?
I think there's a lot that's not recognised as an illness or as a mental illness. So it's the sort of not knowing.
Yeah? Yeah? Brilliant.
Misdiagnosed.
Yeah?
Misdiagnosed and lack of resources.
Yeah?
It can
Brilliant.
also be because people don't really take it seriously. So,
Yeah.
for example, stress
Yeah?
is not recognized by most people as a mental illness, but it can be mental illness
Yeah,
depending on
yeah,
the degree
yeah.
of it.
Fantastic. Thank you. Anybody else? Anybody on that side? No? Okay. Yeah, those are some great reasons there. And again, it's just talking about the stigma. And some of you have mentioned some of the stigma. And again, like I mentioned earlier, as Christians, sometimes we think it's a demonic spirit. We're not as compassionate as we could be. But for me, it's a case of when you look at mental health, think about me right now. I look physically fit, don't I? Yeah? Fantastic. Thank you very much. I like that. I'm not taking you home there. Yeah? Great. However, if I had a cast in my arm or I had a patch over my eye, would you kind of feel more compassion for me? Yeah. 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 Because you can see it. And the issue with mental health is you can't see it. You could see somebody, they look okay, everything looks great, but because you don't know what's going on inside, we don't have that much compassion for them. Yeah? And mental illness can be caused by loads of different things. Lots of different things that causes those issues. So I want to do a little exercise. There's a few of us in the room, so I'm not sure how we're going to do this. I want you to think about the word mental health or mental ill health. I need a few people. Can all of you move? Yeah? Okay. Can I get a bunch of you guys here on this side, on this whiteboard? And I'll tell you what I want you to do before you move. And a bunch of you that want to, I would like you on that whiteboard. And on this whiteboard, I want you to think about positive words or phrases that come to mind when you think about mental health or mental ill health. Okay? So this is positive. Positive words that come to mind when you think about mental health or mental ill health. And on this side, I want you to think about negative words or phrases. Now, I know we're all Christians here, but I want you to be as free with your words as possible. Don't be shy. All right? So on this side, negative words. On this side, positive words. Would you be able to just do that now, please? No, just stay where you are. Yeah, just stay there. Fantastic. Thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for doing that. And when we're talking about stigma, when you think about the words on this side, for those of you that did this one, how did it feel writing those words down?
Well, I thought some of the words were really harsh.
Yeah? Did mean? Yes, I'll mention some of them. I'll mention some of them.
Critical. Yeah, judgmental.
Judgmental, yeah? Yeah? So, let me ask you then, if somebody's got a mental health issue, which words are they using on themselves? This one or this one? I can tell I'm in a Christian group because there's actually a lot of positive words. When I do this in the secular world, that will be completely filled. And that will have hardly anything on it. So well done to you guys.
It was hard.
But it's a lot more difficult. Yeah. I mean, and there's some words on there, things like man up. I've heard moms say their boys, just man up, just do it. Yeah? Things like Dulali. Who knows where Dulali comes from?
What does that mean, Dulali?
How many of you have never heard the word Dulali? Yeah? Yeah? Dulali basically, when somebody says that, it means you're crazy, basically. But the word actually comes from India, whereby during the war, if somebody had a mental, or they were not sure what they were up about, they'll send them to a place called Dulali. And now we use the word to mean crazy. How about things like gone round the bend? Who knows where that comes from? Have you all heard gone round the bend before? Yes. Back in the day, the old asylums used to be built at the end of the street, just round the bend. Wow. So you couldn't see it from the top. So that when they say they've taken Aunt Betsy round the bend, it means they've taken her to the asylum. Yeah? But what happens is a lot of us use these words all the time. Now, what I want you to think about is this. There's a few of us here, and I'm throwing things like, oh, you're crazy. Oh, it's mad, isn't it? If somebody's got a mental health issue, what do you think they're thinking? So let's say I use words like that randomly, and Joe doesn't. If that person wants to talk to somebody, would they talk to Joe or to me? They'll probably talk to Joe before they come and talk to me because I use those words randomly. So really for me, what I'm trying to challenge is the language we use.
That's right.
Yeah? Sometimes your words can hurt people without you even knowing it. So it's just being aware of the things we say. When we use the words on there, some people can't see that, but there's things like psycho, schizo, idiot, deranged. They're just not nice. But a lot of people who have a mental health issue, they'll be using those words on themselves more than this. So it's really important that we can just be aware and be careful of the things we say. Is that right?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Now, what does the term mental health mean to you then? Well, maybe one or two people. What do you think when you think mental health? Yes?
How well your mind is.
Okay. Fantastic.
Emotional instability.
Okay. All right. Fantastic.
When I feel peaceful,
Mm-hmm.
because when I think of something scary inside
Yeah.
me, so yeah. that's
Okay.
why.
Fantastic. Sorry, Joe.
Because my mom has a mental illness, I think I have a negative association with anything with the word mental. Yeah, all my life. So.
Yeah. Okay.
And so, cognitive ability.
All right. Okay. Brilliant.
I suppose,
1, 2. Then you're the last one.
I suppose post-COVID, I think about mental health more as somebody who is prepared to look after the internal self as opposed to external.
Okay. Brilliant. Thank you.
Yeah, similar. I think it's the relationship with your own well-being. So, like, I've come to realize that to have a good mental health,
Mm.
it doesn't always have to be bad. So
Yeah.
I'm coming to realize if you have a sense of a good, being in a good place, and also,
Yeah.
so.
Brilliant. Thank you. Final word.
So I think Mel just took the word. I was just going to say it's just the balance of our well-being to our mind. It doesn't have to be bad mental health. I think we all have mental health, one form of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's good, other times it's a little bit off kilter, and that's when we have some of those
Yeah.
episodes,
Brilliant.
right? Yeah, we
Brilliant.
have some level of
Can I just
Thank
add,
you.
Can I just
Thank
add
you.
to that as well? I also I would rather use the word mental fitness as opposed to mental health.
Okay.
Because it just means somebody taking care of their mental health.
Okay, all right, fantastic. Well, thank you so much. You're all correct in different ways. There's different meanings, it's part of our overall health. And it's amazing what you said about there's no health without mental health. Just like you have physical health, you have mental health. It's how we feel, how we think, how we behave, how we cope with ups and downs. We're all going to go through some up times, and we're going to go through some down times. It's just the way life is. How do you feel about yourself and your life and the future? I remember running a course a few years ago, and there was a lady on the course, and I could tell she wasn't happy throughout the course. And over lunch, pulled her to one side, what's wrong, how are you doing, what's going on? And she's like, I want to kill myself. I've wanted to do that for the last few months, but I've got a twin sister and my mom I live with, and that's the only reason I've not done it. She'd broken up with a boyfriend of many years. She was only 21, 22 at the time. And she, at that point, her mental health was just low. And it was great to be able to sit down with her, ask her some questions, help her. She's doing great now. She's, with good friends. She lives here now in London. And she's doing all right now. But at the time, she just was not in a great place. How you deal with negative things. And we talk about stress. How does stress affect you? Very important. So really important to recognize we all have mental health. It's amazing when I talk to, I know I keep saying Africans, but that's because I did a lot of sessions with African groups. When I say we all have mental health, some people say, no, I don't. Because when they think mental health, they think mad. So the language I speak is Yoruba. I'm a Nigerian guy, right? The closest word to mental health is crazy. There's actually no word for mental health. So when we think mental health, we think of that person living on the streets, naked, cutting themselves, because that's what you see. You get me? So really, it's just understanding that we all have mental health. Just like we have physical health, we have emotional health. Yeah, we all have those things working for us. Any questions? Actually, no questions yet. And then, when we talk about stress, we all react to stress differently. And just bear with me a minute. I like to use a prop here. 1 second. Okay, I'm going to use. Yeah, I'm going to use this one. I need to be careful. So, this is something that we call it the stress container. All right. I know I like to be dramatic sometimes, but I'm not a drama king. So we all have a container like this inside us. How many of you have heard of the stress container before?
Yeah.
Okay, couple. All right. We all have a container like this in us. Sometimes it's big. Some of us is big. Some of us is small. Now, what happens is stress flows into your container. Tell me some sources of stress that you can think of. Parenting, children, yeah? Work, ill health, war, ministry, conflict. Yeah? There's so many sources of stress. Now, the stress goes into your container, and what happens to your container as it fills up? Overflows, okay? And that is when somebody would have an emotional breakdown. That's when somebody would have an emotional challenge, all right? Now, when that container is filling up, how do you empty this container without tipping it to the side? Huh?
Spend time with the disciple and share.
No, I'm talking about a physical container. You're pouring water in this, and you want to empty it, put a hole in it. Yeah? And it's the same thing with stress. Now, the hole on the side is like a tap. We call that your coping strategy. All right? You can have good coping strategy or bad coping strategy. All you need to do is open that tap and your stress flows. Now, could you tell me some good coping strategies, please? Friends?
Exercise.
What you said, talk, yeah? Exercise? Mindfulness, yeah?
Good relationship.
Yeah?
Walking.
Walking?
Breaking problems down, so you're only dealing with one thing at one time.
Fantastic.
Praying.
Praying? Sorry? Going for a walk?
Yeah.
A cup, yeah. Spot on, man. For us English. Yeah? Oh, make roti, yeah? Have you brought any with you today? I could do with some.
Listen to music.
Yes. Sleep, yeah.
So,
Okay, so yeah. So there's loads of good coping strategies. Dancing, yeah, to open that tap. Okay? And the key really is, the key to recognize is, it doesn't matter how big or small your container is. Your container could be that small. Could be. The key is what? Opening that tap. So Mulligan and I could be going through the same challenges. We could both be struggling with the same thing. But he's got a dog. And he takes his dog out for a walk regularly. He's coping fine. I can't. I'm not, because all I do is go to work, go home, go to the pub. Work, home, pub. I'm not really doing anything. Because when you think about bad coping strategies, can you tell me some bad coping strategies that we have? Drinking? Drugs? Ignoring it?
smoking.
Yes, smoking? Overeating, yeah? Bad relationship, yeah? Picking a fight. Fantastic. There are so many bad coping strategies that we have, and so those things there, they block your tap. So when I'm talking to people and I sit down with somebody that's going through a tough time, I actually do this exercise with them and I write down what you're going through right now. And there's several questions you can ask. Questions like, what can you deal with? So there's 10 different things. Which one can you deal with right now? Which one can't you deal with? Which one do you not have you don't know, it's not your call. Who can help you? What are your good coping strategies? What are your bad coping strategies? And it's a really good tool. And if you want, I can send those questions to you. I'll send it to Mulligan. It's a really good thing to sit down with somebody and just go through their stress container. Now, I'm going to ask you, when your container is filling up gradually, what kind of things do you do? Like for me, when my container is filling up, I watch a box set and I just talk. I don't talk to anybody. Yeah? Anybody else? What kind of things do you do?
I'll write down the things that are bothering me and then pick the ones that I want to deal with.
Okay, you're better than me. Yeah? Yeah?
Become silent, no speak.
Silent? Yeah?
I watch American politics on YouTube.
That's a distraction. That's a good one. That's a good one. Anybody on the side? Painting, okay.
Yeah, I do a lot of journaling as well as observations.
Okay, all right.
Just get irritable.
Yeah, you get irritable, yeah. Watch a movie, yeah? Yeah. And chocolates, yeah? Yeah, that works for me as well. Now, what you find is, sorry, son, go for it. No, go for it, please. Doing maths. Oh, wow. I love that. That's brilliant. Thank you. Now, the reason I asked that question is this. When your container is filling up slowly, do you have somebody in your life that can identify that, looks like Mulligan is getting stressed out? Do you want to talk? Do you want to go for a walk? Do you want to go to the cinema and chill out? You understand what I'm trying to say? And I think it's really important that we all have people around us that can identify when our container is filling up and they can help us to open our tap in a way. All right? And so that's really the stress container. And we all have different sizes in our container, and there's different things that influences the size of your container. For example, there's some risk factors. Okay, so things like alcohol, drugs, smoking, all these things on here. Now, these things on this page here, the more of these things you have, the smaller your container will be. Remember what I said, doesn't matter how small your container is, the key is opening that tap. Okay, but the more of this you have, the smaller your container will be. But then, on the other side of that, are some protective factors. Yeah? With these things on here, the more of this you have, the bigger your container will be. Which means you might be able to cope for a bit longer. But still, you do need to open that tap still. Yeah? So it's really important to a lot more of these things. And you know, when I do this in the circular world, I always talk about my faith. I always talk about my church. It's a great environment to be in. Do you know that Christians live longer? Yeah. Because we've got this body that we deal with. We've got this relationship. How many people today have a group like this that they're hanging with? So important. We take it for granted. It's so important. It's ridiculous. Yeah? So it's really important to just remember you've got protective factors, you've got risk factors. We need more of this. Because the more of this you have, it takes a lot longer for your container to fill up. Okay? And there's this thing we call the mental health continuum. Now, back in the day, if somebody's got a mental health issue, they're either good or bad. They either lock you up or they let you go. There's no in between. But this day and age, the way mental health is treated, or mental ill health is treated, is there's two axes. So this line here, the top line is positive, great, fantastic, you're in a good place, you're fit, you're fired up, life is great. On the bottom of that is you're just not in a great place right now. Life is not really that good. Along there is the medical line. And on the left-hand side is diagnosis. On the right-hand side is no diagnosis. Now I mentioned earlier that we all are going to have ups and downs. And our mental health changes all the time. So on the top right-hand side is somebody, right now, they're feeling great. Mentally, they haven't got a diagnosis. Life is good. Life is rosy. They're having a great time. Okay? On the bottom right is somebody who, they haven't got a diagnosis, but they're just not in a great place right now. An example I use is somebody who plays hockey. Okay? Young man plays hockey, plays for England, is doing great, is loving it, is just broken into the England national team. That's the top right. He's in a good place, he's fired up. And then he gets an injury, breaks his leg, can't play hockey for 6 months. He's not happy, okay? He's not got a diagnosis, but he's not happy. He's in the bottom right, okay? No diagnosis. And then bottom left is somebody who actually has a diagnosis and they're not in a great place. So this young man, 6 months, hasn't played hockey, goes to the doctor, he's got a diagnosis of depression. All right? So now he has a diagnosis. But then he discovers football and starts playing football, which is a different type of sport. Now he's in the national team. He's doing great. He's loving life. He's still got a diagnosis, but he's in a good place right now. Now, we all move around all the time. There are days where you wake up and you're feeling fantastic, you're feeling great. There are days when you just don't really feel like it. We're all going to be up and down, sometimes on the left, sometimes some people will move to the right. Now, back in the day, like I said, if you've got things like bipolar, they just lock you up and throw the key away. But we've got people like, Stephen Fry, Mariah Carey. There's people who have a diagnosis of serious diagnosis, but they're still living a great life. So it's recognizing when you're talking to somebody and they're not in a great place right now, feel comfortable to say to them, that's just where you are right now. You don't need to stay down there. Make a couple of changes and you can go back to the top. All right? Now, something that stops people from moving around is stigma. Right? Because somebody feels like, oh, I've got a diagnosis, I'm never going to get better. I'm mad, I'm crazy, I'm doolally, I've gone around the bend. I'm one shot on the cuckoo's nest. I'm a window leaker. All those kind of things. I've heard so many things across the country. And it's the same everywhere. I've spoken in primary schools, I've spoken in high schools, I've spoken in big companies. Same thing. These words are universal. All right? And it's just recognizing that the stigma stops people from moving around. Okay? But we all have it. And it's just how we deal with it as we move on in life. Okay? Now, when you look at this graph here, what do you see? What observations can you make? Sorry for those of you at the back who can't see clearly. But what are your observations?
Two colours.
Sorry?
Two colours.
Women are the dark one.
Yeah, women are the dark one. Men are the light one.
So more women with diagnosis?
Okay? All right?
Women more affected.
But you can say that women probably speak a lot more, but men hold back.
What makes you say that? What there makes you say that?
Because they're more willing than men.
Okay, all right.
That the women tend towards the diagnosable disorder end of the scale, whereas the men are at the taking matters into their own hands and self-medicating.
Yeah. That's spot on.
Yeah, yeah.
When you look on here, women are diagnosed more, but when it comes to self-diagnosis, alcohol and drugs, men generally don't talk. Why is that?
I suppose there's presence of machism amongst men, you know, the stiff upper lip, you know, put it all together because you're supposed to be the man.
Yeah?
Boys
Yeah.
don't cry.
Society, until recently, society tend, you know, to see men as, you know, being the strong,
Yeah?
the strong, you know,
Yeah.
alpha, so to say.
Yeah?
And any attempt to want to talk about how you feel or what's going on in there, it's a sign of weakness.
Yeah? Fantastic. Anybody else? Any other thoughts around that? Thank you. That was awesome.
Well, that it starts from young. Boys
Yeah.
don't cry.
Boys don't cry. Yeah, real men don't cry. Yeah?
Men are not good at expressing their feelings, how they feel inside. So
Okay.
as I say, they probably think they'd be looked down on
Mm-hmm.
to sort of come out and say they have a mental health issue.
Yeah? Okay?
Yeah, I think growing up, I think men are growing up, you're kind of told you're not meant to talk about how you feel. You're
Hmm.
just meant to get on and do stuff. So as a result, even if you're feeling something negative, you just say it is what it is and you keep going.
Yeah?
Whereas women are more expressive because they're allowed to have that freedom.
Yeah? Yeah? Thank you.
The media representation of a man is that you're not a man if you're going to tell everybody your business.
Yeah? Yeah?
Yeah, along with that, the two of them, the alcohol and the drug, I think they're seen for most men in society as a rite of passage. So alcohol is seen as like a thing you should do to be a man. You go to the pub, like you said, you down some pints.
Mm-hmm.
And drugs is like you got to, you know, not in every society, but certainly in British society, it's you got it. It's a rite of
Yeah,
passage to
yeah,
become a man.
yeah.
So I think for men it seemed like macho, like was said.
Yeah? Yeah? Brilliant. One more?
I think with the alcohol and drugs with men, you know, when people use alcohol and drugs, it can be a way of them actually being able to release how they feel. But because of what they're doing, obviously it's got that harmful effect. So
Yeah.
they can, you know, maybe men can flock together, be together
Yeah.
in the pub, drinking, having a laugh, and saying how they feel, but making it joking.
Yeah? Yeah?
So
Yeah?
it's a method.
Yeah,
that
it's a
they
coping
use.
mechanism. Yeah? 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 All those reasons, absolutely awesome. I mean, when you look on there, there's a word on there that says man up. There. How many of you have heard man up before? Yeah. Like I said, I've heard moms say it to their boys. What does that actually mean? Does that mean he can't cry? There's no reason why he can't cry. Yeah? And those kind of things create those instances. You know, Barbie and Ken. Barbie's got guns and is sorted. And Ken, Ken is, he's got gun and Barbie is a cute little girl. Yeah? And those are the kind of things that stops men from being able to express themselves. And then there's the pressure, like you said, of providing. And we kind of put that pressure on ourselves, and there's so many reasons like that. But then when you look at this one here that says PTSD.
That surprised me.
Yeah, that surprised you? Yeah? Anybody else that surprised that there's more women having PTSD? What do you know about PTSD?
I think of wars and like traumatic.
Yeah?
Policemen, yeah, soldiers, yeah.
Is that what you're going to say?
Yeah.
Yeah, soldiers. But you know there's more women having PTSD in childbirth than all the soldiers put together. Yeah? So sorry?
I liken PTSD to fragmented traumas.
Yeah?
That basically they're so fragmented you can't actually put them all together.
Yeah,
You need
yeah,
help to put them
yeah,
back together.
yeah.
I've got PTSD.
Okay.
And it's something that I have to manage every single day.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah. But again, nobody would know that unless you said it.
Exactly.
And that's part of the challenge here, expecting people to have a sign on their head, I've got a mental health issue or mental challenge. But yeah, so PTSD again, we think it's just soldiers that have it. But there's so many different people that actually struggle with it who are not soldiers. So we're just going to look at some mental health conditions now. We're not going to look at a lot because of time. All right. I always run out of time because this session here is actually a 2-day session that I've tried to cram 2 full days into 2 hours. So I'm not going to go through everything. All right. But this is depression, a persistent sadness or low mood with different symptoms. You will not get a diagnosis unless you've had those symptoms for about 2 weeks. That's when you will get a diagnosis. Affects a person's ability to study, okay? Increases the risk of self-harm, substance misuse, and suicide. One of the leading causes of disability worldwide. Did anybody think that? Disability. Of the top 10 disabilities in UK, 5 of them are mental health related. Of the top 10 disabilities, 5 are mental health. OCD is another
What does
one.
that look like, sir? Can you give an example
What's that?
of a disability affected by mental illness or by depression?
So the definition of disability is somebody not being, so if you think about somebody who's got depression, sometimes it could be so debilitating they can't move.
Oh, see, yes, I agree.
Yeah? They can't work. They can't live their lives like they would normally do.
Isn't it true as well that sometimes a physical illness, after it persists for several months, then can lead to
It does,
depression?
yes,
So
yes.
it's
And we'll come to that. We'll come to that. Yeah? Yeah, so a lot of people do. What's up?
No, I'm just checking the screen, just started to go
Okay. And then there are some risk factors. Now, these are some of the risk factors for depression: a family history, childhood experiences. You can go through all of those. I'm just going to pick out caring for someone with a long-term disability. Now, you see somebody, you think, oh wow, they've got a disability, and you feel some compassion towards them. But we never think about the person looking after that person, and they're going through some serious challenges. But that is a risk factor, actually looking after somebody, having a baby, childbirth, menopause, midlife crisis, emptiness syndrome. You know how with men, 40 to 49 is when there's the highest number of suicides? With women is the emptiness period. That's when suicide is highest in women. The children have left home. You're with this man you don't recognize. You think, what's he doing here? It's true. It's true. Yeah? You're thinking, what's this guy doing here? My children have gone. Which is why for those of you with children, please enjoy yourselves. Build your relationships because they will leave you. You left your parents, right? Very important that you have that relationship with each other. Yeah, my wife and I, we go away every 90 days. We go to a spa for 3-4 days. I think it's important to have that relationship. Yeah? Seth is the baby in the house, he's 15. He's going to go to uni pretty soon. I need to be able to know my wife and she needs to know me. So really, it's a period where we need to build those relationships. And then some medication also leads to depression. Certain medications, that's why sometimes they will limit the amount of time you can take that medication. Yeah? Now, just to say, I know some of these subjects, I don't know everybody, I don't know what you're going through. So I know some of these subjects may be personal to some of you, either because of your children or your relatives or even you. I feel you. If it's challenging, please just feel free to step out if you want to, because I know this subject can be a bit painful, all right? But we're just trying to share the knowledge so more of us understand what's going on and we can help each other a bit more, yeah? Now, when you look at some of the possible signs of depression, it says workplace there because I do this at work, but same thing with church, yeah? Decreased productivity, morale, lack of cooperation, safety problems, absenteeism, not showing up, not being there. For those of you who were not there last night, we need to come back now. I'm just joking. Just messing. Presenteeism, I mentioned earlier, coming in, but they really shouldn't be there. So they're in pain, really, for everybody else who's there. Complaining of being tired all the time. Unexplained aches and pains. People think because there's a mental health, it doesn't affect the body. Some people actually get rashes. Yeah, so it does affect you. Irritable bowel syndrome is another symptom. So it's just important to recognize that these things can be physical as well. All right. Then anxiety. Okay. Normally I'd ask what is this, but yeah, I'm just going to go through this real quick. We all have anxiety, right? We're all anxious. Sometimes, you go and do an exam, you do a driving test. We all get anxious, and I love doing this in schools. When I go to schools, I'll put up a picture of a Bengal tiger, and I'll say, if this tiger walks into this room now, what will you do? And it doesn't matter where I do this, all the boys, or some of the boys, will be like, oh, I'm just going to jump on it, I'm going to punch it. Some of them will be like, I'm out of the window, doesn't matter how high it is, I'm jumping out. And some will be like, I'm dead anyway, just eat me. Yeah? And they lie down, they just give up. And that's what we call the flight, fright, freeze. We all deal with anxiety in different ways. But when it becomes a disorder, is when it lasts a lot longer. Interferes with your work, usually unrecognized. This is one where I will get a call a week or two after the call. Somebody said, I've been going through this a long time. I didn't realize that was what I had. That was what I had. Again, usually triggered by stress. And a high level of anxiety over a long period will often lead to depression. So a lot of people will have a diagnosis of depression and anxiety together. A lot of the time the diagnoses come together. And there's different types of anxiety disorders. Now, people just think of anxiety, but there's different types. There's generalized anxiety disorder, somebody who just worries all the time. They worry that thing is going to fall down. Then they stop worrying about that. They worry that, he's going to sleep on the floor. They worry that that's going to come. They're just worrying all the time. Panic disorder, again, shortness of breath. They think they're having a heart attack. Yeah, I don't know if anybody else has panic attacks here. Social phobia, agoraphobia. Who knows what agoraphobia means?
It's like my English, sorry.
Okay.
It's like
Fear of heights going up.
yeah.
Okay, all right. Anybody else? Yeah, it's a fear of open spaces. However, that's what we all think it means. Naturally, agoraphobia means a fear of open spaces. However, what it actually means is a fear of having a panic attack. So if somebody's been to the park and they had a panic attack there, they're scared of going there again because they think they're going to have another panic attack. So that's actually what agoraphobia is. It's a fear of having a panic attack outside or in a certain place. So it's not just a fear of going outside. But traditionally, that's what it's been sold to mean. ASD, though there's phobias as well, fear of things. ASD, PTSD, they're similar. ASD is a fear, is a shortened form of PTSD. So, for example, I had a lady on my course, she mentioned about driving one day, and a young man ran out of the side road. She hit him, he kind of rolled over her bonnet, he fell down, got up, continued running. She came out of the car thinking she'd killed somebody. She couldn't go back in the car. Now, she had that fear and the trauma and the dreams for about a month. She got treatment, she was fine. So ASD generally is trauma over a month. If it goes for longer than a month, then it becomes PTSD. So that's the difference between the two. I mean, during the Manchester bombings, a lot of people had ASD, just from watching it in the news and having been there sometime in their life. And then there's OCD. Again, OCD is one of the most debilitating conditions ever. All right? People say things like, oh, my wife likes to put the tin in a certain direction. It's nothing to do with that. It's such a serious condition. And it's now popularized as a joke, but it's not. It's actually awful for people who are going through OCD. All right? There's other mental health conditions we can't go through just because of time. Eating disorder, again, this is not about the food, it's not about the weight, It's actually a coping strategy. It's a way to cope with something so tough in their lives. They can control their food. They can't control what's going on around them. Same thing with self-harm. Self-harming is a coping strategy. Is somebody going through something really difficult, the only way they can control it, the only way they can feel good and get better is to do something harmful to themselves. So they're coping strategies, but they're bad coping strategies. All right? And then you've got psychosis, and that covers schizophrenia, bipolar, depression, psychotic depression, and all those things at the bottom there. And again, deals with hallucinations, delusions, thought disorders, thinking lots of different things at the same time. But unfortunately, we can't go into them. But it's just to give you an idea of all the things that are up there. Okay? Now, again, we're going to talk about suicide. Just the warning again, please, if this is difficult for you or is challenging for you, feel free to step outside, and I will come and get you when you think when you can come back in. A symbol I give on my courses is if you're not feeling comfortable, give me the thumbs down. Okay, if you're going to the toilet, give me the thumbs up. That's fine. Yeah, and I always say, ladies, be sure. Yeah, I don't want to follow you to the toilet. So let me know if it's thumbs up or thumbs down. Sorry.
I wanted to say, what you're saying is good, but if someone is struggling with the stigma, feeling of stigma, then it's going to be difficult for them to say, oh, I'm finding this difficult, I'm going to get up and walk out. So maybe a break might be a better strategy, if you know what I mean. So when we come back, then those who feel it's difficult.
All right, it's a good point. It's a good point. Again, for me, when I do this in the workplaces, people generally do give me the thumbs up and the thumb. I did it once in the company. 14 people, 7 people had to leave the room.
Wow.
Because they'd had relatives and close friends taking their own lives. So I know it's a tough one. But you know what? I need the loo as well. So can we take 5 minutes, please? And then we'll come back. Well, that's a really good idea. So let's take 5 minutes and then we'll come back. So we're going to be looking at suicide now. And I know this is a subject that is a taboo subject. We don't like to talk about it. But like things we don't like to talk about, we do need to talk about it. And I'll tell you why in a few minutes. If you go back to 2016, and these numbers are the same between the years, okay? 2016, there was nearly 6,000 suicides in the UK.
Whoa.
Yeah? Same year, road accidents, about 2,000. What do you think of when you think about that?
Sad. The amount of news coverage that road traffic accidents get in comparison to the mental health crisis.
Yeah? We talk about, it's Christmas now, there's going to be signs saying don't drink and drive. Yeah? However, many more people take their own lives. It says 15 there, but it's actually 17 plus people take their own lives every day. Huh? In Great Britain, yeah? Well, the numbers are all over the world is generally the same. A lot more people actually attempt suicide. Okay? And this one is interesting. 75% male, 25% female. Why do we think that is? They don't talk? Yes?
Yeah, they can't, they don't obviously feel there are any solutions open to them.
Yeah,
whereas
yeah.
maybe women obviously may feel they've got an alternative.
Yeah? Did you have your hand up there? Isaiah?
Yeah, false expectations.
False expectations, okay?
It's a bit controversial, but I think a bit of biology. I think a woman can always be a mom, can procreate. I think there's a purpose naturally in a woman's body to be a mom. For men, I think there's a little bit of, if I'm not provided, if I've not got a big job, I'm nobody. So
Okay.
situations can affect them maybe more.
All right, brilliant.
Well, also, and don't shoot me for this, but I hear that there's a belief, I should say, let me put it that way, that women, sometimes a lot of women attempting suicide, they actually don't want to kill themselves. They want the attention and they want people to rally around and see how serious what they're going through it. But with men, by the time they come to that point, they actually determine to end it. So that's why they're more successful.
All right.
Sam, basically, men are weaker than women because of the chromosomes.
Okay.
The X, Y chromosomes, that's what it's all about.
All right. Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you so much for all those suggestions. I'm going to stop it there. But the main number one reason is that when men take their own lives, they use a more violent method.
Wow.
That's the number one reason. There's no comeback from it.
Wow.
Women might be found, they will be helped, but the number one reason is when men do take their own lives, it's a lot more. There's no coming back. All right. And those numbers are the same all over the world. 3-1, men and women, all over the world. And some countries that suicide is dealt with differently. Japan, for example. Yeah, it's a honor to take your own life. If you fail in business or something happens, it's honorable to take your own life. So really, again, when we're talking to people, is recognizing how we talk to that person about that subject. Yeah? And finally, we talk about language. Again, how many of you have said somebody committed suicide? Yeah? We say commit. Now, the language now is changed. When somebody commits something, what does that mean? It's a crime. Suicide actually used to be a crime. If you attempted to take your own life and you survived, you could go to jail. It was in the early 60s that it stopped being a crime. So it's no longer a crime. We don't say commit suicide anymore. We say things like he took his own life, she took her own life. Somebody said earlier about being successful. Again, we don't really say that anymore. Because when you think something is successful, what do you think?
Positive.
It's positive. So we don't say that anymore. He took his own life, she took her own life, complete or didn't complete. So it's also really important again that we're watching our language and we're watching what we say. And there are different risk factors when it comes to suicide. All these are risk factors, things you can look out for. And there's lots of things there. This one here, unemployed for more than a month.
Wow.
That's something over the last few years that has been, somebody's not working, they can't get a job. It's just, sometimes it's easier to just not be there. Yeah? Experiencing loss, debilitating illness, history of suicide. A guy came on my course once and he mentioned about he'd attempted suicide and his father came to see him at the hospital and his father told him, your grandfather actually took his own life and I actually attempted it when I was your age and he didn't know either of these things. So it can't, there's a history of it within families. So it's just being aware of that as well. So what can you do to help? How can you help? Again, we talk a lot about early intervention, being able to spot it early, being able to help somebody earlier before it becomes a big deal. So there's early warning signs of mental ill health. There's psychological warnings, physical signs that you can see. I'm not going to go through each of them. I'm just going to leave you to look at it. But there's things like eczema, rashes, difficulty remembering things. Those are some signs of mental ill health. There's other things like behavioral ones. And then because we live online these days, what are you looking out for online? Saying nothing during the entire meeting, putting the camera. I always insist people have the camera on when I'm running my courses online. Yeah, because you don't know what they're doing, just don't know what they're going through. So just being aware of these little things. Yeah? And there's some factors that help recovery. Okay? Some factors, time is a very important one. Good relationships, which is something we enjoy really generally within the body. We enjoy good relationships. Financial security makes a difference. Satisfying work. I don't know how many people have satisfying work, but it helps to love what you do. Personal growth, you know, like I mentioned yesterday, how many of you have goals? How many of you have your goals written down? You read it twice a day. You've got pictures of it. Yeah? No, I'm serious. If you look at my diary, in the mornings, I've got 6 o'clock, my goals are in my diary every single day, and 10 o'clock at night. Every single day. Just personal growth. How many books do you read on a monthly basis? Are you growing? Are you awesome? Yeah? Are you expanding yourself on a daily basis? The right living environment, developing resilience, yeah? Being believed in. Some people, nobody believes them. So, you know, I say I've got a mental health issue and people find it difficult to believe me. They say, oh, he's lying. Or, you know, I've got people that say to me sometimes, they say, you know, I've got people at work and they don't have depression, they're just lying about it. Like, well, just like anything else, look at benefit cheats. There will be people that will try it. However, if they say they've got it, I generally would go with that because they must be going through a tough time. Yeah? Temporarily handing over responsibilities. This will be for somebody who might have bipolar. Usually, one of the diagnoses of bipolar would be spending money. Yeah? They'll go and max out their card. So some banks now would have a limit on your card. You can't spend, if you've got a diagnosis of bipolar, they'll put a limit on the card so that you can only spend so much. If you want to spend more than that, you have somebody that you can get permission from. I've had people on my courses who've got those things on with them. So it's just ways of helping people. Yeah, receiving effective therapies. So really, our response, really for me, is to love. Love as Jesus did. As Christians, as brothers and sisters, we need to be a safe place for people to come and talk to. We need to be able to listen without judgment. It's so easy to judge. You see somebody and you've already made up your mind. There's an exercise we do called your frame of reference. And the frame of reference basically looks at where you've come from. Okay? Where you grew up, the life you lived, your parents, your life. And you get twins coming out of the same home and they're completely different. Yeah? And so sometimes it's easy to look at somebody, they're nicely dressed, they're beautiful, they've got 3 cars, things are great. And then you think everything must be great. And they say, I've got depression. You're thinking, how can you have depression? You're gorgeous. Yeah? How can you have depression? You're loaded. We cannot judge people like that because you don't know what people are going through. Yeah? And it's about attending to their physical well-being and also not just jumping straight into the spiritual. There are different, you know, I was talking to somebody during the little break about stories in the Bible, like the guy that cut himself, that Jesus healed and sent all the evil spirits into the pigs. Just like there is light, there is darkness. Fact. There's nothing we can do about it. And sometimes people would have, I believe, evil spirit that is attacking them. But we cannot automatically just assume and jump in and try and heal them. We've got to approach them and pray with them and support them. But it's fact. Now, how do you know which one is which? Doesn't matter. Just help them. You know, the Bible talks about not being anxious. Jesus was the most gentle guy ever. He prayed for them. He looked after them. We're looking to be more like Jesus. What should we be doing? Exactly the same thing. We can't just rush in and fix people. We've got to pray with them and support them and look after them. Yeah? So, for me, I mentioned earlier about not judging. And I think talking is one of the best things you can ever do for somebody who might be going through a tough time. But a lot of us don't know how to listen. Yeah? When somebody is talking to us, we're already thinking about fixing their problem. We're already thinking about what we're going to do to help them. It's not about you. It's about helping that person. And I think it's really important that more of us learn how to listen. Yeah? My mom used to say, you've got 2 ears and 1 mouth. Use it appropriately, right? How many of you have heard that before? Yeah? And really, when you want to talk to somebody about what they're going through, choose a setting. Don't just come and approach them in church and talk to them. Where are you going to go? Are you going to go for a walk? Are you going to invite them for a coffee and have a chat with them? Are you going to go to theirs or come to yours? Keep the chat positive. Keep your body open. Not confrontational, not like this. Yeah? And sometimes we say when you're talking to somebody, instead of sitting directly opposite, so men and women communicate differently. When women communicate, they're like this. More often, face to face, chatting, just loving one another and helping one another. When men communicate, it's like this. At the bar, fishing, driving. Yeah, that's how men communicate. And we're saying when you're talking to somebody about what they're going through, it's a little bit above. So you sit like that. That helps them. If they don't want to look at you, they don't have to look at you. They can look away. If it gets too emotional and they want to get up, they can get up and walk away. But you're not holding them in, and you just so like that is the angle. All right? But be empathic. Take them seriously. Don't assume they're lying to you. Don't say, thoughtless things like, think about your children. Sometimes that's why they're doing it. That's why they want to take their own lives. Because of the children. They feel like they'll get their life insurance. Yeah? So really, is the things you say very important. It says there, take into account cultural differences in communication. For a lot of Africans, when you're talking to an elder person, you don't look them in the eye. Yeah? It's being aware of that. They haven't got an issue, they're just being respectful. Yeah? So within different communities, the communication is different, and it's being aware of those things. So, some questions to ask: how are you feeling? How long have you felt like this? Who do you think you can go to for some help? Is there anything I can do that we can do to help you? Open questions. Just trying to get the person to talk to you. Yeah? And again, when you look at that graph there, what you don't say sometimes is more important than what you say. Yeah? It's so easy to just talk. Yeah? But the way you are, sometimes your facial expression, your tone, your gestures, eye contact, making eye contact. Yeah, so massive. Put your phone away. Put it on vibrate, silent. Because I've seen people talking and they're chatting and the phone is there. It doesn't matter what's on that phone. That person in front of you it's all there is. And it's just so important that we all can learn little things like that. So, how do you listen? Accept them as they are. Get on their wavelength. I remember there was a time I was driving to a party in Doncaster, and as I was turning around a motorway, there'd been an accident, and there was a guy on the floor. It was motorbike. The motorbike had swerved to one side. He was in the middle of the road, and I was the first person there. Came out of my car, walked to him, and he was lying on the floor. Was trying to take his helmet off, and I thought, Sam, you're looking slick. You're going to have to lie on the floor next to this guy. And I had to get on the floor next to him and just help him keep your mask on. Somebody's calling the ambulance, and then they took him away. So it's really important that you don't stand on top of somebody. You come to their level and you have a conversation with that person. Yeah? Give them your full focus. Listen to their words. Be genuine. Be empathetic. So on that note, I'm going to play a short video. Just to have a quick look at this Brené Brown, and then we'll finish off on the last couple of videos. Oh!
So what is empathy? And why is it very...
I'm not sure why this is not showing. Who's up?
You have to come out. You have to come out from it.
Maybe come out the PowerPoint.
Okay, come out with the PowerPoint. Okay, thank you. There we go. Okay. Thank you. I'm glad we got you guys in the room.
So what is empathy? And why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, you climb down. I know what it's like down here, and you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no, you want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with at least. And we do it all the time. Because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So, I had a miscarriage. Oh, at least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now, I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
Couple of comments around that. Thank you. That link, I can send it to you to send out to everybody. Yeah, so you can send it to people that just talk and don't listen. But what did you think about that video? Just a couple of comments.
So as soon as you started, I started thinking about when Job's friends came and sat with him for 7 days, just quiet on the ground, overwhelmed. And for me, it just encapsulates that, like coming down into the person and sitting with them, not offering solutions, just saying, I'm here with you, I feel you.
Yeah.
But then they changed. Then they went out of bed.
Yes,
You must have sinned.
I think it's just the last sentence when she said connection, and that's a perfect word to use. It's connecting with somebody.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you.
I think we all want to connect, but we don't know how to. So having that bridge of empathy sort of teaches us what real connection is and how to do it. So it's quite good.
Thank you. you. Final comment?
I'm not sure I agree that sympathy is exactly what was described there, because if supposing somebody is telling you about some situation that they're saying is awful from their side, if you sympathise, you're effectively taking their side without having heard the other side of the story, which can be a negative thing, but it's a different kind of negative from what they were talking about.
Okay, all right, that's
Whereas
fair enough.
empathy, you are putting yourself in that situation, but you're not necessarily agreeing that it's quite, the way that somebody sees it.
Okay, all right, thank you. I think for me the point of that video really is for us to be aware of how we're listening. We're not listening to respond. We're finding something in ourselves that they can relate to. We're not saying things like, at least you've got a nice car, or at least your other child is the good child, or whatever it may be. We're just helping that person in front of us directly, focused on their needs, what they need, not on what we think they need, not on what we think they should be feeling. Are you all with me? Yeah? And again, I'll send that video around, have a look at it. It's absolutely, I love it. Yeah, so we'll leave it at that. Another thing you can do to help somebody is what we call the 5 ways to well-being. How many of you have ever heard of the 5 ways to well-being? Okay, you have? A few people? I did a video, a YouTube video on this a few months ago. I'll send it to you to send out. And this really is just, how many of you have heard of 5 fruits a day? Eat your 5 fruits a day, yeah? This is that for well-being, all right? It talks about give, keep learning, be active, connect, take notice. I'll send the video out. You can have a look at it some other time. But you can Google it. I'll send it to you tonight.
Just take notice, can you just say
take notice when you go for walks. Like we went for a walk this morning. Just noticing the changing weather. The leaves coming down. The squirrels. Just taking notice of what's around you. All right. And then encourage that person who might be going through a tough time. Encourage them to do some of these things. Keep physically active. Eat well, reduce caffeine, value themselves, talk about their feelings, learn new skills, do something creative, take a break, have a Kit Kat, ask for help. There's lots of different things that you can help people with. This is what we call just the well-being approach. Being able to help them to do other things, different things. More important than anything else though, when you get on the plane, they say to you, when the mask comes down, put yours on first before you put your child's mask on. Look after yourself. It's difficult, it's tough looking after people who might be going through a tough time. It's so important that you can look after you. Make sure you're in a good place. Yeah? There's lots of different things you can do. Prayer, the word is a powerful tool. Read your Bible, we are Christians. Yeah? Volunteer. I was saying to Jo went out yesterday and she used one of the things I taught yesterday in the shop, and she taught somebody the same thing. And I was saying the best way to learn is to teach. Yeah? Teach. Yeah? Help other people. Exercise, set goals, join a support group, personal care, paint. We've got painters somewhere up there. We've got a painter up there. Mindfulness. How many people here do mindfulness? A few? A couple? Yeah? I love mindfulness. Mindfulness, really, if you want to try it tonight, on YouTube, just type in mindfulness for beginners. And it's an opportunity to be in the moment, not having all sorts of other things in your mind. So even sometimes when I'm washing up, I focus on the lather, focus on the water, on the plate, and I don't think about anything else but that moment. So when I go to sleep, my wife doesn't like it, but she's used to it now. But I will generally play. I've got headspace, and I just play something like 20 minutes. By the time it's got to 10, I'm fast asleep. And no, I can't go to sleep with my headphones in, no chance. So she's used to it now. No, she's used to it now. But yeah, so 20 minutes, between 10 minutes and fast asleep. But it's just a really good tool to help you just think about nothing else but focus on where you are right now. Spend time with friends, family, like we are. Yeah. Setting boundaries, very important. You know, like I said, help people. However, some people might like this, some might not. But if you've got the same person saying the same to you all the time, there's nothing wrong with that. But set a time boundary. Because you've got to look after yourself. Very important. So half an hour, whatever you think you can take. Then, step back and say, maybe we can do this another time. Because they do want to talk, you need to listen to them. It will be good for you to listen to them, but set that time. Yeah? Again, I ran over time. Sorry. But yeah, that's me there. Thank you so much.
That's great. I was just about to say, can we do the last 10 minutes just Q&A? And then Sam's going to be around for church tomorrow. Tux is preaching, but Sam's staying around for church with Seth, so you can fellowship and ask more questions. But let's just have a few. I mean, it could be a response, it could be a question about something he's touched on, something maybe he hasn't touched on. Yeah, let's start with Kalina.
In the video at the end, you was talking about how if someone's talking to you and then automatically you feel the need to make the situation better or try to comfort them, but that's not always the case because talking can't always make the situation better. So if someone's telling you something, what can you say to them without necessarily trying to make it better? But how do you respond to that?
Great question. So how do you respond to them without fixing it, basically? I guess letting them know you're listening. Yeah. Letting them, signposting is always, because you're not a professional. You're not a professional. So sometimes being able to guide them to somebody who might be able to help them helps. But just letting them know that you're listening, you're here for them if they need you. You can't relate to what they're going through, but you feel for them. Maybe even tell them, I love you. I say that to people all the time. As Brits, we're weird. We don't like to say things like that. I love you. I want to help you. I want to support you. And then just that sometimes is enough for people to know you're listening, they can come back to you, and you can signpost them to somebody who might be able to help them. Does that help?
That's great. Yes, Martin. Yeah.
I was just thinking with that, yesterday with the finance thing, we were doing the 10-10-10-70 rule with money. It occurred to me you could apply the same to time.
Okay.
But self-care comes first.
Yeah.
Or in the Christian context, give time to God as well. And I just thought that there was an interesting similarity between
I think there is also, when Sam said, when I said, can Sam come down and do these talks, there is a connection. You've kind of crossed over a little bit, a bit of a Venn diagram of finances and stress, especially in our current climate, where money impacts on a lot of well-being, so I think there's a lot of crossover, I think, between the two. Yeah, that's a great point. Yes, Natasha.
Thank you so much. You talk about so important topic here, and thank you about you talk about the first care about myself, and after we can care about something.
Yeah, very important. It's self-care. I take time. I take my time. Like I said, I go away every 90 days, and I just go and think about me and my wife, and we just chill. Yeah, very important.
Time alone.
Yeah, time alone, without them making children. I just chill with my wife. I think it's so important. So important.
Amen. Yeah, let's go to Sam and Diane.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you touched on the area of depression, and I was just thinking, where do you draw the line when you have somebody who is actually sinning and they're in sorrow with the idea of depression? Because that too can actually be a form of mechanism that causes you to switch off.
So have they got a diagnosis of depression?
No. You know, I'm just trying to find out where
Okay.
that line is.
If they have a diagnosis, there's not, they're going through a tough time. For me, sometimes it's like seeing somebody like Seth. He had a cast for a while, and he's got a cast. It's like me saying, "Oh, just run down the stairs, just get rid of it." That would be the same thing as somebody who's got depression, and we're saying, "Just get over yourself." It's a real issue. It's an illness. Because we can't see it, that person is going through a tough time. You get what I'm trying to say? I think for yourself, what you've got to do is set your boundaries. If you can only take it for so long, set your boundaries and go do your own thing for a bit. Because it has a massive impact on you as well. Well, I see what you mean, I get you, and I do have to deal with stuff like that, but that's why my time is really important. Does that answer it? Yeah? Some of it. Okay, maybe we can have a chat later on.
Just to respond to Sam, I thought he also mentioned somebody's guru who's going through sorrow.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
okay.
somebody's like maybe needing a bit more support with that.
Yeah, well, that's signposting, like I said to the young person up there. Just, there's so many places you can go to. Check online, bereavement in your area, and get them professional. You're not a professional. Get them professional help. Get them a few numbers. If they have a job, EAP, Employee Assisted Program, find out if they have EAP at work. Because with EAP, sometimes you can get 6 weeks, 6 sessions free if your company has an EAP. So find out if they have a job, they can get help either with the bereavement or with the mental health issue. So that's a really good one to be aware of.
Can I just speak into the topic of sin and depression a little bit? So, sin can cause depression, right? We make some stupid choices and we get led by the devil and off we go, and then we end up in a bad place. I made a stupid choice at one point in this year where I rejected someone's advice and I had to live with the problem. But the person I rejected the advice from didn't beat me over the head with it. They were like, it actually led to a lot of anxiety and different things. But they were like, you know, like, and I apologized. I was like, oh man, this was, and I think we still got to deal with we just got to assume where we meet someone, you know, like, now I learned my lesson, you know, and I repented, but I may do it again. I don't know, you know what I mean? But I think I was grateful that I wasn't like whacked over the head for the sin that I committed. Because God forgave me, I learned my lesson. The consequence, you have to live with the consequence of your actions, right? There's just the law of the world, right? But I think in the church, just we could talk more, like Sam said, but I think, yeah, just that, assume if someone, I was chatting to Kalina at school sometimes, Kalina was saying, and I know my daughter says this, a lot of mental health can be, I'm going to just, again, don't stone me, but it can be a bit fashionable. I've got an issue, all talking about it, and Kalina was, I don't know if they've really got anything, but everybody's got something at the moment, so this person has to have something. We still got to assume they may have that thing, you know what I mean? Like, otherwise, perish the thought they actually do something, we were like doubting them or second guessing them. It's better that we assume the best of them. And so for me, that's the policy I try. It's hard because we're like Brady Brown says, we're so ready to jump in and fix things. But for me, yeah, sin is sin. Let's talk about sin, sure. But if the consequence is like they're now in this space, let's help them in that space. My son's like this time, that time. Can I just, I know there's a couple more questions and I can deal with that individually, if you don't mind. Sure. But I want to play one video. Okay. One video. Just bear with me 1 second. I'm not going to make the same mistakes again. So. There we go. This is good.
You've seen this.
There's this pressure, you know.
Have you seen it?
And sometimes it feels like it's right up on me, and I can just feel it, like literally feel it in my head, and it's relentless. And I don't know if it's gonna stop. I mean, that's the thing that scares me the most, is that I don't know if it's ever gonna stop.
You do have a nail in your head.
It's not a good nail.
Are you sure? Because, I mean, I'll bet if we got that out of there.
Stop trying to fix it.
No, I'm not trying to fix it. I'm just pointing out that maybe the nail is causing.
You always do this. You always try to fix things when what I really need is for you to just listen.
See, I don't think that is what you need. I think what you need is to get the nail
See, you're
out.
not even listening out.
Okay, fine. I will listen. Fine.
It's just, sometimes it's like, there's this achy, I don't know what it is. And I'm not sleeping very well at all. And all my sweaters are snagged. I mean, all of them.
Sounds really hard.
It is. Thank you. Ow!
Come on. If you would just.
Don't.
Do you all get the message? Yeah? It's not about the nail. It's not about what you think. That person is going through a tough time. Just be present. Just help them. Listen to them. That's all. Forget the nail. Yeah? Thank you so much.
Let's give some round of applause.